Welcome to Of the Ether podcast, where we help you connect to your body, authentic self, the ether, and beyond. I'm your host, Alyssa McDowell, Holy Fire Karuna Reiki Master, meditation guide, and transformation teacher. Tune in for guided meditations, channeled messages, and healing conversations rooted in self-love and spirituality. Let's go. Hello. I really hate these openers. I'm going to be honest. I never know quite how to start the podcast episode. And so I like, okay, here I am. And but that's not who I am authentically. And I'm not really sure how to come into these episodes myself, but also knowing this could be the first time you've ever heard me. This could be the 5th time, the 100th time. And so it's always kind of I just never know how to start it. I always think about it and I always feel so awkward doing it. But today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things, and that is meditation. And, I could do loads of research. I could reference so many books and websites and other experts about meditation, about what it is, what it does. But I don't want to regurgitate content. I don't want to copy what other people are saying. I really want this podcast to be experiential and a genuine resource and not just content that you can find elsewhere. So I'm really going to share with you why I meditate, what happens when I meditate, and how it can help you kind of unfold into this person that you want to become, and how it can help you in your everyday life. I first started meditating probably 4 years ago. And at first, of course, I had no idea what I was doing. I had read books. I have talked to other people who meditated. I had listened to podcast episodes about other people meditating. And as someone who had never learned to, I'm going to say quiet the mind. I don't love that term, but someone who had never learned how to access that part of themselves before, I really struggled in the beginning. And so I turned to apps like Headspace, where you can download the app and you can choose really short guided meditations that would help you get into the flow of meditation. But I never saw a lot of success with that app specifically. I'm sorry if you love Headspace. I just could never really get into it because I found myself extremely sensitive to the voice and the tone of the speaker. And at least when I was on the app, you couldn't really choose what you were listening to. Or if you could, it wasn't easy to find what I wanted. Or if you could, it wasn't really that easy to find or that easy to filter or search or whatever. And so you would just now this was the unpaid version. I haven't experienced the paid version, so that could be a different story. I would listen to the instructions from the person voicing the meditation, but it kind of half worked, but also half of the time I was I don't really like his voice. I don't like how it's grating or how it is kind of gurgling in the back of his throat, or I didn't like how, I don't know. It just, I can be really incredibly sensitive to noises, and it just wasn't my thing. And also I was what's the point? Okay, there's my thought. I see it floating away. Okay, here the thought comes back. Okay, we're not paying attention to that right now. Let's watch it float away. And I wasn't getting the point of meditation, of quieting the mind, because I was just focusing on sending the thoughts away that were coming to me. And it wasn't ever really quiet. The first thing you hear people say about meditation is that it's about quieting the mind. I don't think meditation is about quieting the mind at all. I think finding the quiet and the stillness within your mind is a benefit of meditation, but that is not the actual point. That is not the actual like root of what's happening. That's like a symptom. After several unsuccessful attempts, I gave up Headspace. I likely took some sort of break and like didn't meditate at all because I wasn't meditating. I didn't know what I was doing. But especially when I got into Reiki and started experiencing or wanting to experience my psychic abilities, I was like, okay, I need to meditate. But what does that mean for me? It was very clear that I wasn't able to follow the status quo of what meditation was or is, and I needed to find my own route because that status quo wasn't working. Eventually, I found that music really helped me kind of get in the meditation zone. And once I found like the meditation music that I like, it's really calm, it's really serene, there's not any voices involved. It was just kind of instrumental, peaceful music, much of the same music that you hear on my guided meditations here on this podcast. And I found if I listened to these and kind of just like lay down and shut my eyes, I could much more easily kind of shut off everything else. And at first, of course, I'm trying to quiet the mind, right? I'm trying to enter a state of blackness, really. That's kind of what I think of when I think of quieting the mind. The mind is dark. The mind is black. There's nothing there, right? While this can be beneficial, in fact, I have heard that this state of meditating, finding that blackness, finding the exact stillness can be more beneficial for men compared to women. Obviously, I haven't had that experience. But I found when I was kind of in that stillness, once I learned to achieve that stillness, while it was peaceful, I got kind of bored. And I was like, okay, there's got to be more to this. And of course, at this time, I was exploring deity work and my psychic abilities. And so I just kind of let my intuition guide me in meditation. And of course, I'm also kind of just learning about shadow work at this point. And I started to ask myself, or my higher self, I don't think at the time, at the very beginning, I realized that I was asking my higher self. I think I was just kind of asking whatever powers that be were there. But I started asking questions. And I found that in this stillness, when I learned to kind of separate my human self from my experience, I could unlock parts of my consciousness and receive feedback or guidance. And this is when my meditation practice really took off. I spent very little time in meditation where my mind was quiet. In fact, I rarely practice this at all anymore, unless I am feeling particularly anxious and I like really, really need to quiet things down. Like there's so much going on and I can't find my north. Then I will intentionally go into meditation with the goal of quieting things down, of experiencing that nothingness so I can get a break. But I will tell you that when I'm meditating, it is rarely quieting the mind. There is nothing quiet about my meditations at all, and I'll give you an example later. But when I learned that I could do this, this is when my meditations really took off, and when they really served a purpose, when they like really started helping me. And I used music as a way to kind of tap into that otherness of myself, tap into more than just my 3D, my ego-based experience. And so when I go into meditation, I literally just close my eyes and I just kind of picture separating from my current experience, my everyday, my thoughts and worries and my to-do lists. I just kind of like set them aside and it's like this portal opens in my crown. And now it doesn't take me very long to get to this point. Sometimes if I feel like I'm struggling getting to that point, I'll use some breath work to kind of help me relax my system. You'll see some examples in my guided meditations here on the podcast again. But it could be 3 breaths, it could be 10 breaths, kind of whatever I'm feeling. But most of the time, I don't even need that anymore because I've been doing it for so long. But once I feel that separation from the current experience and feel the connection to my crown and the ether, I'll generally ask a question. Sometimes I'll ask my higher self the question. Sometimes I'll call in a deity that I may be working with, or an ancestor, an angel, whatever I'm feeling like. I will call them in, kind of wait to feel or experience their presence in whatever sense that I'm picking up on, and I'll ask the question. And every time I'm amazed at what comes through, because it's generally nothing I'm expecting, or it's everything I was expecting. And I'm like, yeah, I should have known that, but like, thank you for giving me the checks and balances. I got it. I'm back on the road. But in my meditations, I'm having full conversations. I am seeing things and experience things and receiving guidance and downloads and making decisions, right? Kind of asking, what would happen if I go this route? Is this the right route for me? Should I be doing this? Is this for my highest and greatest good? And then I wait for the answer. I'll tell you, if you're going to do this, whatever answers come forth, whatever you experience, please, please, please write it down. If you have been around for any amount of time on any one of my socials or this podcast, this isn't a new concept, but it is a very important one. Because when you are in meditation, you are kind of outside of your body, right? You're not using your 3D, earthly senses. You are using more subtle ones that kind of feel like they exist outside of your body, right? Outside of this physical vessel. And because of that, once you come back into your body, you will forget them quite easily. So I always have my journal and a pen nearby so I can write down what I experienced, because I will forget about it. It doesn't matter how profound it was. It doesn't matter who I was talking to. It doesn't matter how long it was or how detailed it was. If I do not write it down, a week from that moment, I won't be able to recall a single detail. It just slips out because it kind of like exists outside of yourself, right? You're in the ether. As I'm speaking, my hand is a foot above my head. You are above and beyond what is in your physical vessel. So I always write it down so I don't forget. And what happens in your meditations will progress the more you practice. And know that you can ask for things. I ask for things all the time. You can ask for your gifts to open up. You can ask for a new job to come through. You can ask for guidance on how to make your relationship with your partner better. You can ask why this same kind of like cycle keeps coming back to you, why the same type of people keep coming back to you. And pay attention to the answer. And of course, then follow through with the action that needs to coincide with that answer to get the outcome that you're looking for. Again, your meditations, the point of them is not to quiet the mind. Feeling that quietness, that focus is the benefit. And like I said, my meditations are not quiet. There's other things happening. There's full-on conversations happening. But with that, because I am locked in on my higher self and I have pushed away everything else is quiet. My system, my brain, my emotions, my nervous system isn't being attacked by everything else that's going on, and I am able to focus on that one thing. Meditation is not quieting the mind. It is finding a singular focus. And you can choose what that focus is. If you want your focus to be on your breath, great, do that. If you want your focus to be on regulating your nervous system, do that. If you want your focus to be on bringing abundance into your life, do that. If you want your focus to be on, why can't my partner and I find a resolution for this one issue? That can be your focus. Your meditations do not have to be quiet. I'll give you an example. I'll be honest, I'll be authentic, I'll be vulnerable and say that I've kind of had a shit year. I used to work full-time for a marketing agency. If you listen to the Year of Rest podcast, you've heard about this. But the agency shut down. I lost my job. I've been unemployed in my own business while I have been progressing and creating new things and rearranging all the strategies and the content and like really up-leveling everything. It's been slow. And while I can see the necessity of finding rest, things are a lot slower than I want them to be. And so today, when I sat down in meditation, I called in Lakshmi, who is a goddess known in Hinduism. And she helps with abundance and prosperity and fertility and so many other things. And I just called her forward in my meditation to kind of like help me out. And in my shadow work journey, I've been kind of like working on the concept of being in my feminine versus my masculine. Being able to receive versus always doing, and forcing. And so I have this level of needing to kind of be patient and wait and be open to receiving, making sure my channels are open and ready. And so once I could feel her presence in my meditation, I asked her to give me an energy healing conducive to what I need right now in this moment in order to call in the goals that I have been manifesting and working towards. And something really amazing happened. So first, I could kind of feel her presence in front of me. I don't always see like the big or the full picture. I kind of see little tidbits. So I couldn't see like her full body. I could sense the presence of the full body, but I was really only seeing the hands. And she has 4 hands. To me, that feels like she's able to do a lot. She's able to do things behind the scenes. She's able to do more than one thing at a time, kind of working above and below. And I saw her hands in front of me, and I could picture my throat space, my heart space, my solar plexus. And with her hands in front of me, it appeared that she was pulling out these kind of like gold particles from my system. They were suspended in air, kind of slowly retracting from my body closer to her hands. And I just watched them for a moment sit in the space between me and her. And after several moments, the gold particles turned to white gold, like the true embodiment of alchemy, switching one thing to another. And the formerly gold particles, now white gold, were pressed gently back into my system. It kind of felt like this course correcting, like I had all the right things needed to get what I wanted, but I was just kind of like on the wrong path, or like the energy of it was just like slightly off and needed to change. And as this was happening, the very center top of my crown had like this tingling pressure. I always love that physical confirmation that something is happening. It's always really beautiful when you can like actually feel it. You're experiencing it in more than one sense at a time. So the white gold particles are back in my system. And then she begins to place clear quartz pointed crystals on each one of my chakras and at every like major joint. So my shoulders, my elbows, my knees, both of my hips, and at my feet. And then 1 point above my crown and 1 point below my feet. And then she proceeded to bring in jade crystals, and she formed kind of like this oval circular boundary around my entire body, kind of like the outside of my aura. It reminded me of the wreath that's pictured on the World Tarot card, which I love. I love any tarot representation. It really helps solidify the messaging for me. And then I just kind of sat there and allowed the energies of what occurred in that energy healing with Lakshmi and the crystals kind of settle within my system. And even now I can feel that those energies are still embedded in my energy and are aiding me. And that was just one meditation. I had no idea that was going to happen before I sat down, but I asked for something and received. If you've never meditated before, if you really want to try to kind of get into the habit of it, you'll hear from me as well as others to start small. Start with small 3-minute meditations and then progress to 5 and then maybe 7 or 10 minutes. It takes a lot of practice to get into the habit of shutting off everything from your current experience. And it can feel really overwhelming and defeating when you try to do it for 10 minutes your first time, because it's a practice and you have to remind yourself, nope, we're not paying attention to that right now. Nope, I'm connecting to my higher self now. All of that can wait. It's a practice, and you may fail several times before you finally get it, but that's okay. If it's something that you truly want, if meditating is a goal of yours, just keep trying. Experiment the way I experimented. Headspace didn't work for me. I found that music did. Try experimenting with other things, even if you haven't heard of someone else doing it. Don't be afraid to explore. Don't be afraid to fail. All you need to do is try. And even you could ask your spirit team for help when you're meditating. Say, hey guides, I don't know what I'm doing, but please help me quiet my mind. Please help me shut off the rat race of my current 3D experience so I can connect to my higher self. Or simply, it could be, Spirit, please help me connect to my higher self. And just be patient and give yourself compassion, and don't judge yourself if it doesn't work the first or second or third time. Grant yourself permission to experience whatever comes, even if it isn't the outcome that you wanted. Now, following this episode, I will have short meditations for you to experience if you find that that is the route that works for you. So you'll find a 3-minute meditation, a 5-minute meditation, 7 minutes, and 10. That's all I have for you today. Be well.